I worked 2 jobs to pay my dad's medical bills, skipping meals just to keep him alive. When he got better, he threw a party to thank everyone except me. When I walked in, he said, "Didn't think you'd want to be part of something successful." I left before they could even cut the cake. 2 years later, when he needed another surgery, I was too busy. When my dad got sick, I was the only one around to help him. It was sudden. He dropped to the floor one night while I was in the kitchen. I thought he was kidding at first, but then I saw his face. He was pale, clutching his chest. I froze for a second, then grabbed my phone and called 911. They said he needed heart surgery, and he needed it fast. Problem was, he didn't have insurance. He had worked construction his whole life but had no benefits and no savings. My older brother, Mark, hadn't called in years. My mom left us when I was a kid. So I was it. The only one left. At the time, I worked at a car lot during the day and barely made enough to cover my own rent. But I knew I had to do something. I took on a second job delivering pizza at night. I'd wake up at 6, work at the lot from 8 to 5, then head straight to deliveries until midnight or later. I barely slept. I skipped meals. I sold stuff just to pay his bills. My laptop, my old record player, even my couch all gone. The worst part wasn't the work. It wasn't the exhaustion. It was the silence. My dad never said thanks. Not once. I kept telling myself it didn't matter. That I was doing the right thing. That maybe he just wasn't good with words. Then, after months of treatments and surgeries, he got better. He was walking again, driving again, even going to the bar with his old buddies. One day I saw a post from my cousin on Facebook. A video. My dad was standing in the backyard, holding a beer, laughing. There were balloons, a banner that said, "Thank you for saving my life," and a big table full of food. I hadn't been invited. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the video was old. Maybe he planned to call me. I drove over there. Not sure what I was going to say. I just needed to be there. Needed to see it for myself. When I walked in, he saw me. His face dropped. And then, in front of everyone, he said, "Didn't think you'd want to be part of something successful." I stood there for a second, hoping someone would say something. But it was just quiet. I left. Didn't even say a word. 2 years went by. We didn't talk. I got promoted at work, moved into a better apartment. Got some peace in my life for the first time in years. Then the phone rang. It was him. He needed help again. This time with his kidneys. He needed rides, help with paperwork, maybe someone to sit with him during appointments. He left a few messages. Finally, I picked up. He sounded tired. Said, "You think you can take a few days off work to help me out?" I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "Sorry. I'm too busy being part of something successful." Then I hung up. After I hung up, I waited for the guilt to come. But it didn't. Not that day. Not the next. I didn't feel proud either. Just empty. Then came the texts. One after another. Some from my dad. Some from my cousin Janine. "Are you seriously ignoring him while he's sick again? You're still holding a grudge? Grow up. He's your father." That last one stung. He's your father. I didn't answer. A week later, I found out he was back in the hospital. My aunt called not to guilt-trip me but to tell me he'd listed me as his emergency contact and asked for me. I went. When I got there, he was hooked up to a machine, looking a lot smaller than I remembered. He was awake. Just barely. He saw me and smiled. "You came," he said, like we were on good terms. I sat down and didn't say anything. He started talking like nothing ever happened. Told me about the nurses, how the hospital food sucked, how he might need dialysis again. Then he said, "It's good to have family around." Real family. I snapped. Quiet, but sharp. Real family? You mean the ones you threw a party for and thanked while I was eating beans and bread every day to keep you alive? He blinked at me. You're still on that? That sentence, it felt like getting punched. I stood up. I told him he could call Mark if he needed help. Or one of those buddies he thanked at his little backyard party. I reminded him I hadn't seen a single dime repaid. Not even a thank you. He didn't apologize. Just looked away and said, "You always were sensitive." I walked out. On the way to the parking lot, Janine called me again. I answered this time. "You think walking away again is going to fix it?" she snapped. I lost it. "Where were you when I was working 2 jobs and crying in my car at midnight because I didn't know how I'd pay the gas bill?" Silence. Then she said something that changed everything. "He gave Mark power of attorney last year. If he passes, Mark gets the house." I stopped walking. What? Yeah. Didn't he tell you? He hadn't. That house was my childhood home. I helped fix it up. I paid off the second mortgage during his recovery. And now, the son who never called, who didn't even show up during the first surgery, would get it? I hung up without saying another word. I drove home, heart pounding, already planning what I was going to do next. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the things I let slide. The money. The time. The silence. The disrespect. I kept telling myself I was the bigger person, but all I really did was let everyone step over me. The next morning, I called an attorney. I didn't have much, but I had proof. Bank statements showing I'd paid his hospital bills. Receipts. Texts asking for help. I even had screenshots from the GoFundMe he started where he said, "My kid's been helping me every step of the way." No name, but the timeline matched. I told the lawyer I wanted to challenge the power of attorney and the will if there was one. He said it wouldn't be easy. Said it would get messy. I said, "I don't care." While that was brewing, I started calling Mark. He didn't answer the first few times. When he finally did, it was like talking to a stranger. He said, "What do you want?" I asked him if he knew Dad had left him the house. He said, "Yeah." He said you didn't want anything to do with the family anymore. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't even funny, just unreal. I told him everything. About the jobs, the debt, the party. The betrayal. He listened, but all he said at the end was, "Well, it's not like you're living there. And I already talked to a realtor." That was it. He was going to sell the house. The place I grew up in. The place I kept from falling apart while our dad was sick. I called Janine again. Asked her straight up if she knew Mark was selling. She paused. "He said he'd give you something after the sale." "How generous," I said. She didn't respond. 2 weeks later, I showed up at the house unannounced. Mark was there, walking a couple from room to room, acting like he'd lived there his whole life. I waited until they left, then walked right up to him in the driveway. He looked surprised. I said, "You're not selling this house." He said, "You don't get to decide that." And I said, "Neither do you. Not if I take this to court." I handed him the folder of paperwork. Every receipt, every bill, every note from the hospital that listed me as the payer. I even printed out texts from Dad asking me for help. He flipped through it, then tossed it back at me. "You think this makes you a hero?" he asked. "No," I said. "But it makes me the one who gave a damn." Mark went through with the sale anyway. 2 months later, I got a letter from his lawyer, offering me $5,000 as a goodwill gesture once the sale closed. That house sold for nearly $300,000. I didn't cash the check. I didn't rip it up either. I just kept it in a drawer, to remind myself what my family really thought I was worth. Then Dad took a turn for the worse. He was back in the hospital, this time for good. His kidneys were failing, his liver was shot, and they said he probably wouldn't make it through the week. Mark called me. Left a message, he's asking for you. I didn't go. I thought about it a dozen times. But every time I got in the car, I remembered him standing in the backyard, lifting a beer, surrounded by people who barely knew what I'd done. I remembered the way he looked me in the eye and said, "Didn't think you'd want to be part of something successful." Like I was some screw-up, not the person who held his damn life together. So I didn't go. He died 3 days later. Mark handled the funeral. Sent me a short email with the date and time. I didn't respond. I stayed home. Sat in my apartment. Ate a real dinner for once. No ramen. No beans. Just something warm that I cooked myself. A few weeks after the funeral, I got another call from Mark. "I cleared out the rest of Dad's stuff," he said. "There's a box here with your name on it." He didn't sound angry. Just tired. I didn't know what to expect, but I drove over. The box was small. Just some papers, a few old photos, and a notebook. Inside the notebook were some of Dad's old work notes, measurements, names of jobs, small sketches. On the last few pages, he'd started writing a letter. It wasn't finished. It said, "If you're reading this, I probably didn't say things right while I was around." I was mad at myself for needing help. Ashamed, really. I know you did more than anyone. I just didn't know how to face that. Didn't want to feel weak in front of my own kid. I should have said thank you. I should have said I'm sorry. That was it. No signature. Just that. I didn't cry. I didn't say anything. I closed the notebook, put it back in the box, and left. I never forgave him. Not completely. And I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for not going to the hospital. But I do know this: the people who take and take without seeing you don't deserve to be carried forever. I gave everything to a man who forgot me the second he could stand on his own 2 feet again. And when he finally needed someone for real, I remembered exactly how alone I had been. So I let him feel it too.